one of my final questions, since you have been in the space for a lot longer than a lot of people, especially all the new people funneling into cryptocurrency in 2021, what would be one of the biggest pieces of advice you would give a new cryptocurrency / Bitcoin investor in the space today?
Yeah, I mean, obviously start with Bitcoin. You've got to get a firm foundation to understand, what this thing is. You have to understand that, everything else in the space is high beta to Bitcoin, much more volatile. So, if you're thinking of like investing in the space, you have to understand that unlike stocks and bonds and like these different asset classes where diversification improves your Sharpe ratio or improves your risk reward of your investment in your portfolio, adding other cryptocurrencies over the long term, over a 5-year horizon or 10-year horizon or whatever, to a Bitcoin position gives you a worse Sharpe ratio. It decreases your risk reward. So you will have more risk, more volatility, and less money over the mid to long term, diversifying out of Bitcoin into other cryptocurrencies. It's really hard for people to grasp that because we're just sort of like, if you had any sort of like basic finance and you're thinking about different asset classes, they don't understand sort of like, bet on the winner. And I think that's one of the nice things of having Saylor in the space and just kind of like explaining like once something hits escape velocity at like $100 billion and is the dominant digital network in their niche, that's the one to bet on. And it's got, a lot of headroom from there, and it will actually eat all of the remaining market share from all of its competitors. I think that's like a really important one. And then the other one is, Aaron, thanks for mentioning education over and over again. My mantra that I say over and over and over again, I'll give the long version if I can remember it. I've been using the short version, but it's something like, the amount of value that someone is willing to store in the Bitcoin protocol is directly correlated to their understanding of Bitcoin. And of course, Gigi took it and was like, oh, you mean like, so like the more you know, the more you buy? So yeah, the more you know, the more you buy. But really it's the education that you put into your own brain that gives you the diamond hands that lets you actually ride out cycles that delivers the big gains, right, over time. And unless you're going to be stacking sats constantly all the time, you're going to fall short of where you should get to. And, so I would read all of the good books. I would read Jan's book because it's free. Go to swanbitcoin.com/free book. It's my favorite intro to Bitcoin. It's called Inventing Bitcoin. We have a free ebook and a free audio book. So pick that up. All your users can just go grab it for free. Read the Bitcoin Standard. Read a fun book written by like a really good writer, like Digital Gold, which was written in 2014 by a New York Times author who's written a bunch of books. Still doesn't quite get Bitcoin completely, but he's such a good writer and he does such a good job of cataloging the first 5 years that, it's still one of my top 4 or 5 recos to people to read Digital Gold. I'm glad it was the first thing that I read about Bitcoin.
And I would add to that, I really like Dan Held's Planting Bitcoin series that's free online, where he describes how Bitcoin wasn't just created based on nothing. It was like planted specifically and solved all these problems. And he pulls a lot from the Bitcoin Standard and other things that were written. That's
Planting Bitcoin is great. I mean, if we're going to do articles, still the number one URL that I send to people to this day is The Bullish Case for Bitcoin by Vijay Boyapati,
right?
Which was all the way back in March of 2018. And it's still the best single article on Bitcoin.
Right. And Dan Held's Planting Bitcoin actually like uses some of that, or a lot of it, I think. Yeah. But I would totally like echo what, you said about, obviously, Bitcoin only, stay away from altcoins. In my personal opinion, definitely like all of these altcoins are 99%. I think some might make it, but like definitely the ones we have now, 99% going to trend to zero versus Bitcoin eventually. I think 2021 is similar to 2017, but like people don't realize, I think like that's something everybody who's been in the bear market realizes, that these altcoin gains are fleeting. Maybe you don't even want to chase them. Just make sure your Bitcoin position is increasing in whatever way you can do that, because in my opinion, it is a sure thing.
Yeah. And, look at these popcorn alts now, and look at them in Bitcoin terms versus their all-time high in Bitcoin, right? So you got like Ripple back to $1 or whatever, but it's, I think it's still down, 90% in Bitcoin terms from its all-time high, because right. Bitcoin's way up from the last time that Ripple was $4 or whatever in the first week of 2018 or something like that. You know, these things, they'll all pretty much die eventually.
That's why I think of it more like a trade, even though I know like most people shouldn't trade. It's bad, but that's just the way I think about it.
Yeah.
But either way.
Yeah. And listen, man, I have a lot of trader friends. You know, that's how they make money.
Yeah.
They're really, really good at it. Most people are not really, really good at it. And they're mostly giving money to my friends.
Right. Right. And people just don't realize that you want to make sure your Bitcoin stack is increasing. Because like you said, with XRP, right, given enough time, at most 3 years, but it could be a lot smaller, it's going to just like lose value continually versus Bitcoin. And it's hard to see that if you're just looking at it versus USD.
That is the problem. If you're thinking fiat terms versus Bitcoin terms, yeah, you've got to start to shift your mind and use Bitcoin as your base currency, basically.
Cory, my final question, and this is just a fun one we like to ask a lot of our guests. Bitcoin at the end of this cycle, above $250,000 or under?
Oh, the peak?
The peak.
So like the peak, basically, do we have another 4x from here?
Yeah.
4.5x. On an even money bet, I'd say yes, but I'm not in like the definite camp. I'd probably say there's like a 60 to 65% chance in my head that we go above $250,000 in the cycle.
And is it because of the institutional FOMO that we've already started to see? Is that the biggest catalyst?
Yeah, that's the biggest catalyst.
I'd love to hear your opinion on a counter narrative. If there is something that could stop Bitcoin or harm it in 2021 or in the next few years, what do you think that would be?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys hinted at it earlier. The most that somebody could do is kind of slow it down, you know, and no individual country outside the US could really slow it down because most of the growth is driven by innovation and buying power in the US. So it would really just be some kind of, you know, executive order or some kind of legislative action, probably affecting on-ramps in some way, or trying to sort of like get their arms around Bitcoin in some way. But, you know, they're going to find that would only be very, very temporary, I think, at this point, because it's just too well understood and the opportunity is just too big. And the US would just start to fall behind so very quickly. You know, I wrote a piece called 10 Million Bitcoiners a little over a year ago. That was kind of the mission statement for the company just before we launched. And a lot of that was around thinking that we needed to like inoculate against that, because I was kind of assigning like a mid single digit percentage chance of something like that happening. You know, if Brad Sherman got some friends, you know, to go along with and, you know, tried to do something scary to Bitcoiners or something like that. And I think between, you know, Paul Tudor Jones and Saylor and Skybridge and Tesla and all the stuff that's happened in the 12 months since then, I now assign that percentage chance of some sort of like major adverse action by the US government against Bitcoin sub 1% now. I think it dropped by 90%. And so, yeah, it's really hard for me to imagine. I would say like something that's going to really dramatically affect Bitcoin is now firmly in the fourth quadrant, which would be like unknown unknowns. There's no FUD that doesn't have like a pretty well thought out, fairly easy answer at this point.
It's been sort of the sharpest minds have talked all the biggest risks, you know, to death. And I mean that in a good way, in the fact that, you know, that's a lot of people, that's what they have time to do. And they've thought about all these big picture concepts.
All right. That was some great perspective. I like it. Hey, if you want to watch the full interview, check the description below, link and details how to do that. And make sure you subscribe to our channel. We drop a video every day, daily coverage, everything there is to know involving Bitcoin and cryptocurrency will keep you informed. We're dropping another video tomorrow, so subscribe to the channel and I'll see you then.